Hey there, welcome. Thanks for being here. I've been a little vacant for a short bit. Happy to be back, chatting with you and hopefully bringing some perspectives that bring you support. Thanks again for those of you who have been subscribing and liking. I really appreciate it. There's going to be some changes unfolding here very soon, and I will keep you in the loop of that. But for now, one of the things that has been on my mind a lot is well, they're kind of intertwined. As I've been doing this elemental alchemy course over the 5 weeks, we are now coming into week 3 of fire. We just ended water last week. Well, we had the water class. Everybody is in the water element right now, and I'm always a week ahead, so I'm already in fire, and I'm feeling it, and it's great. But one of the things that I wanted to talk about was initiation and surrender. So the two most powerful elements that really evoke deep change and transformation is water and fire. They have very different qualities and very different ways of initiating us and bringing about transformation. And I wanted to talk about surrender, which is an initiation path. It's literally a path that is of the feminine and is of the water element. The water that also connects us to the earth. But primarily the qualities of water, when we are going through a deep initiation, for me, because I like to work elementally, the way that I have experienced the water element is the direction and the perspective that I'm going to share from, right? There are always numerous perspectives and perceptions, and that's what makes our world and our species pretty amazing and sometimes chaotic and sometimes celebratory and sometimes not so much. But when we're looking at an initiatory path of the feminine from a water perspective, we're looking at, for me, it's a very inward soul connection. It becomes almost this magnetic experience that desires to pull us inside, internal, inward looking, inward sensing, inward knowing. The feminine works in the darkness. The feminine works in the unknown, in the unseen, and she works in the deep waters. Her magic, right, and her power of deep love and reverence is about transforming us from our egoic persona, from our personality into a deeper, higher state of our personhood through letting go, through being forced to let go and almost, let's just stay with the water. It's the sensation of either floating or drowning, right? So these are two kind of extremes. One can feel rather refreshing and relieving. The other can feel debilitating. Both have their purpose. When we are not familiar with the paths of initiation, so I've brought up initiation one or two other times recently, and initiation by its nature is challenging. It's hard because what it's doing is it is attempting to break us apart, right? Of everything that we think we know. It's trying to dismantle internal structures that we have based our reality on. So if you can think about it in terms of, our bones, for instance, right? Our skeletal system, we could say, is an internal structure, right? It keeps us upright along with a lot of other systems. But it's the scaffolding. It's our inner scaffolding. So we also have an inner scaffolding, which is an energetic composition of our experiences, our thought forms, our emotional patterns, our behavioral patterns, and everything that we bring in karmically. Our reality is built on this stability of what we think we know to be true. When we're on the spiritual path, and oftentimes when we aren't, and what oftentimes gets people onto the spiritual path is their life falls apart in some way, shape, or form. And that is a wake-up call. From my perspective, it's always a wake-up call. There's never a mistake, right? It's never happenstance. It's never just comes out of the blue. Most likely, we just haven't been reading the signs along the way because maybe we didn't know there were signs, right? We think everything in that perspective might just happen randomly. We might not realize that everything in life is entangled and connected and intertwined. And if that's the case, things can happen and calamity can be felt, and we might feel victimized by it rather than, or angry about it, rather than going, holy cow, thank you for this amazing wake-up call. And now I have to surrender into what I'm sitting in. Perhaps I'm sitting in a big mess, right? Perhaps my relationships, my work, my own, soul crisis from inside is taking place. And I feel lost, I feel confused, I can't think straight, nothing makes sense anymore, right? So this is that embodied experience of transformation knocking on your door because you're being initiated into something much deeper. So the two main branches that I work with, and really I love both of them for their own expressions, is, initiation by fire and initiation by water. Both are deeply challenging, and they require a breaking down in a very different way. So when we're moving through the feminine throes of a water initiation, we may begin to feel all of our energy is zapped, pulled from us. We might feel depressed, melancholy. We might feel lethargic from out of nowhere. We might not be able to think straight. We may be having waterfalls of emotion that we may not even know where they're coming from. And every attempt to grab onto some kind of control is fruitless, which then increases, right, the feelings of helplessness, perhaps despair, perhaps even fears come to rise up. But every time we try to grasp onto the new, we can't hold. Nothing is solid anymore of what we thought, we knew, we felt. So it's like our inside might feel like it's turning into its big puddle. And what we're being asked to do literally is to surrender into, usually by that point, I was going to say either the floating, which you might still be able to surrender into that, but the longer it goes on, it becomes a drowning. And surrendering into the drowning is challenging. And again, if we don't know what to look for, we might think we need psychological help, and you might need support. I'm not saying that. We might think that something really big is wrong when actually something really big that is right is happening. So, very brief, example of a feminine experience of this. So years ago, in 2015, 2016, well, probably from 2012, actually, I literally, the way that I put it was, I was not allowed to work. I was not allowed to work. Where in the past, I had been, every job that I wanted, I would get. Effortlessly, first time, my confidence was strong, right? I knew how to navigate my material plane. And now granted, in 2000, I had another one of these surrenders, but then I regained a new level of stability, and then came the second bout. So this second bout took away literally my ability to, no matter where I went out to work, nothing would come from it. Or I was only offered positions that were part-time. Now, I was living in Los Angeles at the time. We had just moved there. My ex-husband and I had just moved there, and it's expensive. So we really needed two incomes. And what ended up happening, long story short, couldn't work. And then the more that even the part-time was pulled away, it left me facing a next deeper level that needed to be dismantled. And some of the main key points at that time were, previously I had been fiercely independent, and I valued my ability to be able to be completely self-sourcing, right? I had a very strong masculine, so it served me, and then clearly it was not serving me anymore. I had a lot of guilt and shame because I was not working, and my ex-husband was actually working a ton in order for our survival, right, in LA. It never felt like survival. It always felt like we were flourishing because he did an amazing job at taking care of. And I was very adamant against feeling like I had to rely, right? Independence, reliance. I did not like having to rely on somebody else. So I had to literally die into a deep drowning of those experiences. I could not fight them anymore. life, the divine, my own soul presence was calling me deeper within because I was in the middle of an initiation process. That meant I would have to learn deeper wisdom and grow in a deeper level of connection with my soul, wisdom, and faith and trust in the divine. Not my doing, not my ability to maintain my contribution to, survival. So this took me down the road of untethering myself from some of my personal stories of scarcity and survival based on material world paradigms. Now, granted, I had somebody who was able to hold the space for this, but in my inner experience, based on my scaffolding, right, that had come in from past lifetimes, that had come in from experiences and my own convictions of the importance of self-sourcing and self-reliance, my masculine, all of this got like torn asunder within me. And it was very challenging. I went into a deep depression, even though depression is not normally an experience that I have, and I had to just kind of stay sunk in at the bottom of this sea and allow the water to storm away my inner reality of how I thought I was supposed to be, what and how I was supposed to function, and my own doing, right? I am the doer. Most of us rely on ourselves as being the doer. And as we move through the spiritual journey, we have to relinquish that we are the doer. We are co-creators. But the longer that we think from the egoic perspective that I am the one manifesting everything, at some point this gets challenged. This has to get untethered because we are coming home to the remembrance that we are a part of God. We are part of the divine. We are sparks of the divine. So anything that we are doing with, and we are doing by aligning ourselves with that wisdom, not what we think is supposed to be. So initiation breaks us down, and then it reveals deeper remembrance. It reveals to us higher truths. We are revealed unto ourselves as a next incarnation, even in this life. So that's when we get to step into a new role. Usually when we come out of an initiatory phase and stage, and I will say they can last, a couple months, they can last years. Our limited thinking cannot comprehend everything that is happening on a soul and blueprint, right, quantum level when we are going through the initiatory phase. We're in the unknown. We're lost in a lot of ways. And maybe all we can do is, what's in front of us. And that might not be a lot. That might not be what we want. That might not be what we think should be. And those ways that we get caught in our own beliefs are exactly what needs to be broken down. And the more that we try to establish ourselves in what has been, right, the harder this is. Now, if you're not on a spiritual path at all, this is going to probably be a little bit different. It probably won't last maybe as long in a debilitating way, perhaps, depending on your soul blueprint, as if you're on the path. So some people kind of think, woohoo, I'm on my spiritual journey. Everything is great. Everything is beautiful. Everything is fun. And oftentimes it is in the beginning. And then we get to go deeper. Now, some people will sort of resist that, and you might have the choice of resisting it and go like, yeah, I don't want any of that. I want to just stay in my regular, 3D experience and doing what I've always done and just, toe that line. Because this feels way too much here. This feels out of control. I feel crazy over here. I don't like the unknown. And that's always going to be a soul's call, right? It's like we still don't really get to choose that, really. Our karma gets to choose that. Our divine blueprint gets to choose that, so on and so forth. But for those of us who are committed, who know that we have stepped onto a path of divine love and truth, and in that comes all sorts of, the myriad of ways that we start waking up. But ultimately, when we're on that path, knowing that I choose the highest expression of myself and of the divine in me, we will go through the deep valleys. And we will either get, drowned by the deep waters, or we will be burned by the fire. So fire is going to be our class on Saturday. So we're going to talk a little bit more about that. The water allows us to fall gracefully, to sink gracefully if we choose, to drown gracefully, and literally allow that sense of surrender to bring us to deep peace. Okay? Every time we let go in a larger way into surrender, right? Whether we're surrendering to the fire or we're surrendering into the water, we are saying yes to meeting and coming into relationship to a divine quality of being. A deep, deep, high frequency expression of self that connects us to divine source. So oftentimes the water, when we can really just let everything fall away, we're going to fall into the beautiful arms of peace. the deep feminine mother of peace, where we can then be deeply held, be deeply known by ourselves as both a soul presence and a divine essence. So I'm going to end it here with the encouragement to not say no to the trials and tribulations of your initiation. Life is going to show to you when things stop working. Let them go. Allow there to be empty space. Don't try to fill it with needing to know. Instead, you watch what comes up. You allow those resistances, those fears to come up and to be healed. Had I had maybe not known I was going through an initiation and really not knowing what was happening on a deeper level, had I not trusted to at least a degree what was happening, and I like pushed through with my self-will, who I became through that process, well, I would not be here doing the work that I'm doing today. I would not be transmitting through light language. I would not be connecting in the ways that I do to my divine aspects, to my higher selves, to the higher realms, to the wisdom, to the deeper connection with Source, to greater love. I would have forfeited all of that because I wasn't able to go that distance. We all have the capability to do this, and your blueprint, your soul, will move you. If you are meant to go deep, your soul is going to move you. And then my encouragement is allow it. Go through the death process. Go through the drowning process. Because you will rise to the surface again. And the beauty and the celebration will be deeply exponential to when you went in to the process. You will have transformed into the radiant being of light that you are, that we all are continuing to move into, call into us, and live from that, from within. All right, that's it. Talk to you soon.